to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you taking some time out of your busy life. And I hope that the next half hour we spend together will be one that's really inspirational to you and helpful to you, especially as we talk about something that I think is so important and just some wisdom out of my life that I'd like to share with you on acceptance. Accepting what you can't change, but also what not to accept in your life. Both sides, two sides of the same coin. We'll get to that in just a second. But before we do, let me just share with you a couple exciting updates. One is that on the Bible app, the YouVersion Bible app, largest Bible app in the world, one of the largest apps in the world, over 500 million people have downloaded it. You can get the Greater 5-day reading plan. 5 days of inspiration to increase your faith. Greater. And I would highly encourage you to do that. And if you haven't bought my book, Greater, yet, this is a perfect way. You'll be introduced. All five that are in the devotions that are in that 5-day reading plan come from the Greater book. So you'll get a taste of exactly what Greater is all about. I believe after you do the plan, you'll be like, yeah, I want to get this and read 95 more. Certainly hope that happens. So you can type in Greater Rick McDaniel in the search, or you can look, it's under categories like hope and joy. So you could find it there. It's been number one under the joy category, but as of the recording of this video, we don't know if it'll continue that, but you can always just type in Greater Rick McDaniel and you can download it. And then each day, just spend a few minutes each day, free resource, fantastic. The Bible app is just a fantastic YouVersion. It's a fantastic resource. I mean, it is the reading plans, the video verse of the day each day. It's just such a great resource. If you've never downloaded it, by all means, it's the YouVersion Bible app. The icon is an icon of a Bible. And this is actually 9, by the way. I have 9 reading plans, so certainly want you to listen to Greater, or read Greater. You can listen to it, by the way. You can listen to them or read them. There's 9 of them altogether that I've done, so you've got plenty there that you can choose from. The other thing I would say is that this past weekend, I did the first Greater message of this year, 2025. And I am traveling around the country to share this message in churches, but also in corporate and business settings and keynotes at conferences and things like that. There's different versions of it, obviously, depending on the audience, but it's the Greater message. So I'm booking California, Arizona, Minnesota, Massachusetts, obviously Virginia, where I live. And I'd love to come to your state and come to your church or come to your business or your corporate event or whatever it might be and share this very encouraging and inspirational message of a greater life and greater in all aspects of your life. So just go to rickmcdaniel.com. There's a place where you can contact us there, and just contact us. It'll make its way to my assistant, Terry, and she can communicate with you and get it scheduled so we can come and share this message of inspiration, which we would love to do. Absolutely love to do it. So the Greater message came out on the first of the year on Fox News, and now it's out on the Bible app. So there's an introduction for people. Well, what would it be like to have Rick come and share the Greater message? Well, the Fox article is perfect. That will tell them everything they need to know, and then the Bible app as well. So get those resources, take advantage of them, and let's see if we can't spread this Greater message and just have the greater year, a greater year than we've ever had before in 2025. So last week I started what is going to be a series of episodes having to do with just some real, nuggets of wisdom from my life and the things that I've experienced and learned that I want to share with you. And today it's what to accept and what not to accept. This acceptance is a very, very important concept. What I've learned about it is so valuable to me, and I want to share it with you. And the first the first I learned about it was a long time ago. I mean, a long time ago. In my 20s, I was introduced to this concept, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But I'm going to just tell you how I've handled the difficulties and challenges in my life, and how I've created opportunities for my life are tied to this concept of acceptance. And I could never share a series of episodes on, just like life lessons and wisdom without sharing this one here, because it is really a golden nugget. If you can get a hold of it, it will change your life in many, many, many positive ways, for sure. The principle of acceptance really begins with what I think is the turning point in history, personally. It's Jesus going to the Garden of Gethsemane. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, he is struggling with going to the cross and what this is going to mean, the suffering, incredible pain and suffering that he's going to encounter. And so in Matthew 26 and verse 29, it says, Jesus walked on a little way, and then he knelt with his face to the ground and prayed, Father, if it's possible, don't make me suffer by drinking from this cup. And the cup is a metaphor for the wrath of God. But do what you want and not what I want. Or another way to say it is your will, not my will. And that is the heart of acceptance, is accepting God's will and accepting things that happen in your life. And when Jesus did that, that gave him then the peace and ultimately the victory. That allowed him to go to the cross. He died on the cross for the sins of humanity. He rose up from the grave, proving his victory over death and sin. And because of his resurrection victory, we can be forgiven of our sins. And anyone who asks Jesus to forgive them of their sins and come into their life and start a relationship with God through Jesus Christ is forgiven of their sins and is, the Bible says, born again, born spiritually. Their soul is saved. Your soul is saved, and you have a guaranteed spot in heaven when this life is over, and you have an abundant life, a greater life, while you live on this earth. And everything shifted when Jesus accepted what he could not change, which was God's plan for his life. Now, I learned this principle years ago when I was in one of the most difficult situation up to that point in my life. I've had a couple of others that have been pretty tough as well, but that was one of the toughest ones I'd ever gone through. And I was so miserable and unhappy. And I was making my wife miserable, and she was like, what is wrong with you? Because the entire time she had known me, I'd been such a positive person, never ever down or delving into anything that wasn't positive. And here I was just like miserable about what was happening to me. And God, thank God, sent me this little booklet that was written by this pastor in Oregon who had experienced his wife leaving him and taking his children away from him. And he shared how acceptance was the key to how he got through it. Now, there's a famous prayer, the Serenity Prayer. I'm sure you're familiar with it. God, help me to accept the things I cannot change. Give me the courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. Taking this life as it is, not as I want it to be. That's a famous prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr, a famous theologian at Harvard, who wrote a prayer that Alcoholics Anonymous has used for years and popularized. But that is the essence and the principle of acceptance right there. Help me to accept the things I cannot change. So let's just talk about some things you can't change. Can't change the clock. You can say, well, I go to different time zones. Yeah, that's true. You can change your watch when you go to different time zones, but you can't You can't turn back the clock. You can't change it. Time moves on. Every day, the bank of time opens and all deposits from the previous day have been removed. You can't change the past. Man, some of you really need to hear that. You just go over and over and over on your past and mistakes and things you wish you could do differently. You can do nothing different about it. The past is the past. Can't do anything about it. Can't change it. You can't change the loss. Loss of a loved one, loss of a job, whatever loss, sports loss, business loss. And here's one you really need to hear. You cannot change another person against their will. Can't do it. Cannot be done. Now we could go on. Can't change the weather. I mean, really, it's really something to think about when you think about the weather, and just like you can't change the weather. You cannot do it. It cannot. It's been amazingly cold here recently, here in Virginia, and frankly, it's been cold a lot of places in America. And you know what? What can you do about it? And as I said to my wife recently, we had the last 2 winters have been so mild. I mean, just amazingly mild. I never even used my warmer down coat. Never even used it. Most of the winters I was wearing just like a vest. Didn't even need a winter coat. So guess what? Now, that happens. But it doesn't matter because we don't control it. Do you look at the terrible fires out in Los Angeles? The wind blows. The weather does what the weather does. There are obviously issues with people and starting fires and how you handle fires and reservoirs and, water, all that. That's not our purpose today to talk about all that. It's just to say that when all those human factors are taken out, there's just some things you can't do anything about. The wind shifts. So you accept that life will throw you some curves. You accept that you will experience heartache. You accept that life is not fair. Never did Jesus ever say life was fair. It's nowhere in the Bible. So if you've ever heard anyone, God never promised a life that is fair. God told us there would be suffering. Jesus suffered. Here's what acceptance means. You stop fighting the inevitable. You're freed from anger and worry, and you receive inner peace. So let me just tell you what happened to me. Back to the story. So I read this little booklet, and I'm like, okay, God, grant me serenity. Serenity is just a fancy word for peace. Grant me peace, Lord, to accept what I can't change. I can't do anything about this situation. And I am telling you, that's exactly what happened. Not one external factor changed at all. But I changed on the inside. And a couple days later, my wife came to me and she said, "You're different. What happened?" I said, "Nothing. Same situation, same unfairness, totally unfair and wrong." She said, "Well, then how are you different?" I said, and I told her what I'm telling you. I accepted it. And when I accepted it, I received peace. When I stopped fighting it, getting angry about it, ruminating on it over and over again, this isn't right, this isn't fair, I've been wronged, I receive peace. And you might be there right now. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a financial situation, maybe something's happened in your business or your career. and you're just like miserable. And I know, I understand. I'm not diminishing it in any way, shape, or form. I'm only saying to you, you can keep fighting it, but you're going to stay miserable. Or you can accept it and focus on what you have and not what you don't. That's what you have to do. Shift your focus, accept it, and say, I'm going to look for the good things and I'm going to accept the bad thing. I mean, there are things that you simply cannot change, no matter how hard you struggle. Now, I'm going to talk about the other side of that here in just a second. And if you ever met someone who will exert his will and refuse to accept certain things, the guy talking to you right now is that guy. So, I mean, you'll hear it in just a moment. And I wanted you to hear this first, so then when you hear me talk the other way, you'll go, but that's the same guy that said there's things I have to accept, and that there's just certain things that no matter how hard you struggle and work, you're not going to be able to change. And remember that last thing I said, change someone against their will. I mean, I'm in the people change business. You know, that's what I've dedicated my entire adult life to. And I've seen incredible changes and transformations in people's lives. And it has been so fulfilling helping people and watching them grow and change and become so much better people than they ever were before. But if someone doesn't want to, I'm telling you, you can't make them change. You can try to motivate them. You can try to encourage them. That's what I do pretty much every day of my life. You can try to show them a better way. You can tell them stories. You can share with them other people's journeys. And many times that works. Otherwise, I wouldn't have anything to do with my life. Many times it works, but sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, there's just nothing that you can do except to accept. A-C-C-E-P-T. Accept. E-X-C-E-P-T. Accept. The only thing accept you can do is to accept and stop fighting it. Now, let's just look at the other side of the coin. The right hand to the left hand, however you want to say it, because this is a pivot, you know. There's things that you don't have to accept. So this principle of acceptance is not some kind of principle that applies to everything, everywhere, every time. No. I decided a long time ago there's certain things I'm not going to accept, and I have stuck by it for years. You want to know what I won't accept? I won't accept a bad attitude, a negative mindset. I won't be around it. I won't be around negativity. I just won't stand for it. Not going to fill my mind. I'm not going to allow myself to be around those kinds of people who think that way, because to me it's poison. To me it's counterproductive. And I could list about 10 other things, but I won't, because we'll have another episode on attitude and mindset. Trust me, it's coming. I'm not going to accept a lack of effort. I've been in leadership a long time. You know, I was the president of this and the captain of this and then the head of this and the senior pastor. And, you know, I've been in all these leadership positions for years and years and years. So I've had a lot of people work for me, and, you know, I'm not going to accept a lack of effort. Effort can make up for a lack of talent many, many times. But talent can't make up for a lack of effort. I'm not going to accept mediocrity. Just not going to do it. I'm just not. I despise that. I want excellence. I want the pursuit of excellence. And I'm just not going to accept it. Now, again, excellence doesn't always mean you win. I hate to lose. I wish I could say I won't accept losing, but I can't say that because you have to accept loss because it can come into your life. But I'm going to do everything I can to keep from losing. And then if that, I won't accept injustice. I just will not accept it. I'm not going to stand by and watch people get mistreated because of their skin color or their ethnicity. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to stand by and watch people be treated unfairly. I'm going to step in every single time. If you're with me and something like that happens in a particular situation, or it's something in a larger issue, I'm going to speak out about it. I'm going to use the influence I have. And on a personal level, I'm going to step in and say, yeah, this isn't happening. So I'm just not accepting those things. And I could go on, but we only have so much time in these episodes. We like to keep them at 30 minutes, and we do a pretty good job every week. Let me say also this. I've also decided that in certain circumstances, I'm not going to take no for an answer. Not all circumstances, but in certain circumstances. Now, Jesus said this in the Gospel of Matthew. He said in chapter 7, verse 7, ask and you'll receive, search and you'll find, knock and the door will be open to you. Everyone who asks will receive, everyone who searches will find, and the door will be open for everyone who knocks. So you got to ask, you got to search, you got to knock, you got to ask and seek and knock. Not just ask and seek, not just seek, knock. I mean, in other words, what he's saying is you got to stay after it. You got to stay after it. And I've done that in my life in certain circumstances. I have done it, and I have seen incredible success. We were trying to find property. We looked at 25 pieces of property, and I can just tell you right now, all along, I knew where I wanted to be, but I didn't know how we could possibly get there. But I refused to settle on any of those 25 other pieces, and we got the property. Then it was time to get the loan to build, and no one wanted to give us a loan, and I refused to accept and take no for an answer, and we found somebody that would. Years and years ago, close to 20 years ago, we had this idea to start an online campus, internet campus. Nobody was doing it. In fact, we're one of the first 10 in the country to ever do it. First one in the state of Virginia. People were like, that's weird. No one's going to go to church online. It's not going to happen. And I'm like, no, we're going to do it. And it grew to 160,000 people. And then, of course, then the COVID pandemic comes and everyone starts doing it. And we've been doing it for years and years and years. There's the old Chinese proverb that says, the people who say it can't be done should not bother the person doing it. Yes, indeedy. And so I have spent my life doing things that people said, can't be done, shouldn't do it. No, we won't do that. No, we won't help. And my response has been, I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm going to find a way. Now, listen, when you have God on your side, it makes a big difference. Now, this isn't like Rick wants what he wants and wants to do it for his own. Well, that's a different story now. Because if that's the case, then all my sports teams would win and, So I'm not going to claim some sort of power that I do not possess. I'm simply saying that when you're on the right side and God's with you, then you just stay after it. You keep asking, you keep seeking, you keep knocking until that door is opened. Now, again, certain circumstances, you can't do this in everything in life, and you can't expect a positive result if it's really like a selfish motivation. But if you're with God and you're on the right side of it and you're trying to do something that is for the best for many, not just you, then, you can be bold. You can have a boldness. My buddies, now, I don't know if I've even said this publicly before, but I'll say it now. Way back in the day, they used to call me Dr. Bold. Dr. Bold. Like, that's what I was, man. I was just like going for it, and I would encourage you to go for it as well. I would also say there's things that are just unacceptable, like, again, as I said, I'm not going to accept this or that or the other. And, there's just things that are unacceptable to me on, you might say, like a personal level, not say even like a leadership level or a public level, but just things that, I was just like, I'm not going to have these things in my life. I'm not going to. I'm going to do everything I can. Like, I've always been someone who has worked out and been physically fit to this day. I've never been overweight. I've never been out of shape. I'm just not doing it. It's just something I just said I won't accept that from myself. I won't do it. I'm not going to bring sickness and disease. I've never spent a night in a hospital. The only thing I've ever had done is I had a gallbladder removed, and even then I pushed it until I got gallstones and was in utter misery. But even then, in and out the same day, like not doing it. I'm just not doing it. So I've always had multiple streams of income. I never was just going to rely on one source. Not going to struggle in that area of my life. I just was like, nope, not going to do it. Going to enjoy this life. Doesn't mean I'm going to, just be reckless. But I'm going to have those experiences that I want to have, and I'm not going to say, gosh, I wish I could have done this and I wish I could have done that. If only. No, I'm just not going to. I'm going to. Now, again, the blessing of God, the provision of God, I don't want you to misunderstand, like just the force of your own personal will can do it all. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you do have to, as last week's episode, again, when you do all you can do, God does what only he can do. When you exert your will, refuse to accept things, say they're unacceptable, then God does what he can do and provides and blesses. It's always that principle at work, and here's just another example of it. I would say this about acceptance. The greatest accepting that you can do is what I was referencing earlier, accepting Christ into your life. The most important acceptance is that you accept this truth. You're not perfect. So that means the Bible would say you're a sinner, like all of us have sinned, and we fall short of God's standard of perfection. So we need to be forgiven. And so you accept the truth about yourself, and then, good news, you accept the offer of forgiveness that comes through Jesus Christ, and you receive forgiveness of all your sins, all your mistakes, all your failures, past, present, future, as you ask for them, and God then accepts you, and you become part of the family of God, and your soul is saved. And anyone can do that. There is no one you say, I don't know about me, I've done this, that. Nope. Everyone is able to accept Jesus into their life. And if you've never done that, that is what you need to do. That is step number one, because that really opens the door then to all kinds of other incredible blessings coming into your life. And that will give you peace and wisdom, direction. And then you just gain a whole new group of friends that are called your church family. And it's just marvelous. I've never lived without it. I would never want to live without it. If you're living without it, you are missing out so much. But that can all change when you accept Jesus into your life. So you accept the things you cannot change. You change the things you can. You refuse to accept certain things in your life. You make sure that you've accepted Jesus into your life. And you do all those things, and you're gonna have a peaceful, joyful, happy life. Not a perfect life, not a life that never has problems or difficulties. There will be challenges and suffering. There will be setbacks. But in the end, you'll come out on the winning side many, many more times, and you'll live a life of real purpose and meaning. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.